Basically, all throughout high school, I kind of struggled with finding my identity. I didn't love myself the way that I should have, and I didn't respect myself. I had a lot going for me. I was smart, I made good grades, really involved in school, National Honor Society, all that good stuff. I was varsity in all my sports, and like I said, I really had a lot going for me. But I didn't appreciate anything that I had. I was giving myself away to boys that didn't even really deserve to know me. I was partying, just kind of all the stuff that high schoolers really had no business doing. I didn't have a lot of friends because I really didn't think that anyone cared to know me or really even liked me, because I didn't even like myself. Around my junior year, it got to the point where I was depressed, and literally everything that I did gave me anxiety. I didn't want to go to school. I hated being around my family. I never hung out with anyone. I hung out with my teammates, but that was about it, and that was because I had to. I was getting in trouble a lot with my parents just because I didn't really respect what they had to say. I didn't want them to have any control over my life because I didn't even really have control over my life. So about halfway through my junior year, it got to the point where I was full-blown depressed. Literally nothing made me happy whatsoever. I remember I got in really, really big trouble with my mom. They were gonna sell my car, and I really was not going to have a life after that. I mean, not that I really thought that I had a great life anyways, but it was done after that point. So she left for work that afternoon, and I really just didn't want to face the consequences of my actions anymore, and I didn't want to feel as lousy as I felt, and I just literally felt like everything around me was going downhill and I had no control over it. So that day, I decided to overdose on hydros. I don't remember much after that over the course of the next couple of days. I was unconscious, but I remember waking up in ICU. I had a tube from my nose to my stomach to pump out all the toxins that I had put into my body. I remember everyone coming into my room and just crying. And at that point, I was so mad. I was even more mad than I was before the overdose because it didn't work, and now I had to deal with the aftermath. And it was hard. It was really hard seeing my family cry and just ask why, and why I didn't talk to them. After that, I went to it was like a psychiatric type hospital thing, but not really. It was kind of more of a rehabilitation place. And I was there for almost a week. And it was during that week that I kind of came to terms with what I did, in the sense that depression is something that you can deal with, and it's not something worth ending your life over. You can talk to people, there's ways to cope. I had to meet with a psychologist and a counselor every single day, multiple times a day. And every day it was the same questions. Do you want to harm yourself? Are you feeling better? Are you a threat to others? And it was just repetitive. And it was that way up until the point that they cleared me to go home. I remember one session with meeting one of the preachers from my church. He asked me my feelings on the situation, and I just remember telling him how down I felt, that I had done that to myself and to my family, and that I just felt like I disappointed everyone, and that was including God. And he told me that the reason that my mom came home when she did and got me to the emergency room when she did was because I hadn't fulfilled my purpose here on earth, and I still had a lot of things that needed to be done in the name of God. And he told me that God will forgive me as soon as I ask for it, and that what was holding me back was me not forgiving myself. I remember whenever my mom came to pick me up, all I was thinking was, how are they going to treat me after this? I remember being worried that they would just walk on eggshells around me, like I was just a ticking time bomb ready to try and hurt myself again. But after I got home, I agreed with my parents to start meeting with counselors at least once a week until I was feeling better, and then it would just get to as I needed it. I would also meet with a preacher, and during those meetings that I had with them, I kind of finally started to realize what I'd just done and all the great things that I could have thrown away. I remember feeling really disappointed in myself, and I remember it being something that I just felt like I could never live down, and I couldn't really ever forgive myself for. So accepting what I did, I thought would be impossible. But I continued to meet with him. It definitely did help. It alleviated some of the pain and the stress that I was feeling from what I had done. I remember my parents would ask me every day how I was feeling, and it just got so exhausting having to tell them and reassure them that I was okay. And every time I would get upset or something would bother me, they would ask me if I was going to hurt myself again. And hearing that was really devastating. It hurt, the fact that my parents had to ask that, and the fact that they weren't sure where my head was at with that kind of thing. So the remainder of my junior year, I just kind of kept my head down and minded my own business. I didn't have friends, didn't really care to. It wasn't until my senior year that I finally kind of started to get over things and could openly talk to my mom about the situation and kind of open my eyes to the fact of whenever they were asking me if I was going to hurt myself or if I was okay, it was just because they were genuinely concerned. My family was willing to be there for me, and it wasn't that they just weren't willing to listen. It was the fact that I wasn't willing to show them that I was feeling weak at that point in my life. Like I said, I shut everyone out. I didn't want anyone to know what I was going through, and I even honestly shut God out. I stopped praying, I stopped reading my Bible, and I didn't even really want to go to church because I felt so hypocritical. But after everything and just kind of looking back, I realized that no one left my side, and everyone was rooting for me to get better and to see that the sun does shine. So about 2 years later, I decided that situations in life don't really define me. I started living my life the way I wanted to. I started making more friends. I started being just an overall better person. And not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I felt like I was given this second shot at life, and I was going to use it the best way that I could. So freshman year of college was a good year. I just used it to better myself, and I don't know, I also tried to make it a point to encourage others who were kind of feeling low. This last year, my sophomore year of college, I have just felt like I am at the best place in life that I have been since the overdose. I have more friends than I ever have. I have healthy relationships with all of my family, and not once has the thought of overdose ever crossed my mind. But yeah, I'm just in a really good place, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and I think that's because I've kind of ran to God with all my problems, and I have finally found my identity in Him, and that is because I have realized that I am His and I'm not anybody else's. All the boys that I was giving myself to, that I don't even know, but that's not who I am. I don't know, I guess I finally realized that God never really left me. He was behind me the whole time, just waiting for me to turn around and just jump back into His arms. Literally try not to miss a Sunday unless I'm in bed, super sick, not able to move, but even then I'll still have it online. I really try and get my weekly dose of positivity, just because there's not a whole lot outside of church. And so whether that's me just deep into my Bible or looking back on past sermons, I try and get as much of the church as I can. And that's just because I want as much positivity and just overall encouragement in my life that I can possibly have. And there's just so many amazing people that I've met through the church. And I've met them through volunteering. I also got baptized here. I talked with a lot of great people during that. And I plan on going on a mission trip this summer. And I just feel like I am finally doing something really, really good. And, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't picked myself up and gotten back on a narrow walk with Christ. The freedom class came at a really good point in my life. I was kind of in a limbo between being a really strong Christian and just being a lukewarm one. And I started taking the class my freshman year of college. And basically what the class was, it was identifying your inner problems and just learning to give them to the Lord so that you can walk free in Christ. And you know, I really thought that I had addressed all the issues from the OD, but really sitting down and looking deep into myself, I kind of realized that the major issues I had just kind of swept under the rug. I thought I had forgiven myself. I may have partially, but whenever I finally decided to pin it on the cross, as we said in the class, that was the moment that I finally felt like I was walking free. The class overall just kind of gave me a lot of insight in what it actually means to walk free. I thought walking free, you're just, you know, taking a little gander with Jesus, but you really have to look deep into yourself and realize what your problems are, and you have to get to the root of them and just try your hardest and pray your hardest, and finally whenever you address them and get to the root, that's whenever you can finally walk free. What I learned most about myself is even after my weakest point in life, that I am so much stronger than I think that I am. Even after everything, I tried to make such an effort to make myself better, and I tried to pull myself out of this little negative hole that I was in and try and just kind of go uphill with my life. And I've made it a point to only go up after everything that happened. I mean, of course, I have my moments where I'm upset and kind of mad at the world, but even after those, I've learned to just pick myself up, because it's not the end of the world. And it's okay to feel down, but it's not okay to let that consume you. So I know that suicide and depression is not a topic that is comfortable to talk about, but what I would really want people to know is that just talking to someone helps so much. I played victim throughout most of my life just because I really didn't ever think that anyone could understand what I was going through. I didn't feel like they would be able to relate. And not necessarily that they had to be able to relate, but I didn't think that they would want to listen to the problems that I had or the feelings that I was feeling. So I just kind of shut everyone out. And that caused a lot of negativity in my life. So whoever's going through depression, just talk to someone. It doesn't have to be your mom. I know that moms are kind of a little overbearing whenever it comes to stuff like that, but that's just because they care about you. Maybe meet with like a counselor that doesn't know you on a super personal level, or your preacher at your church, but just get some insight, because these problems that we think are the end of the world, they're not, and they pass so much quicker if we face them head on. And depression doesn't define you. You don't have to feel like this horrible person because you're overwhelmed with this mental illness, but there is ways to prevent it. And you have to be willing to do something for yourself. Even though I went through some really, really dark points in my life, I've learned that God is for me and He's behind me. And even after everything, you know, He's still there. And I've just kind of learned to take my problems for what they are and to face them head on and solve them. But I'm finally at the greatest point in my life, and I feel like I have a lot going for me. I am no longer on my depression medication, and I don't have to see counselors. If I get really worked up about something, then I'll meet with somebody, but it's not a necessary thing. But I've come such a far way, and I never plan on going back to the point that I was at. But like I said, things get better. They can't stay as bad as you think that they are forever. You just have to seek out the positivity and go to God with your problems. Go to God. That's the best person that you can go to. He's never going to turn His back on you, no matter how dark and gross and horrendous you think your problems are. He will never, ever leave you. And I think that's something that I forgot a lot. But whenever you finally accept that God is always going to be there for you, He will literally become your best friend, and you will never want to go a day without Him.